And you thought I was done with the Christmas videos. How wrong are you? Well, technically, you're not wrong, and I am technically done with the Christmas videos slash New Year's videos. Um, this one is going to be a My Hero Academia video, and this one is going to be another one of my, since it's been a little while, my 10 good, 1 bad discussion videos, and this is going to be about Aries. I've wanted to do a discussion video about Aries for quite a while. I know other people have done them, but like I just love Aries so much, and I just kind of wanted to do a video about her. Go there. And I've just always loved her. She's just always been so sweet. I loved her arc in the comics when she's in the manga when she's introduced. That was one of the arcs that was going on when I first started reading My Hero, and like I was just like, oh, I can't wait to see this in the anime. And then it came through in the anime, and it was great. And just like seeing her develop and come out of her shell has just been one of my favorite things to watch about the series, because I just kind of look at her as this very good way of explaining to the world how quirks can be used. And and I'll go over this a little bit in the video some more a little bit later in the video, but it's like she's so worried about her quirk because her quirk rewind, of course, allows her to reverse someone's reverse something that's organic. Usually it's like she wants to try to learn how to use it, of course, to how to reverse injuries. Reverse Izuku when he, breaks his arms or his legs, or, reverse, different things like that. And she wants to be able to control her power so she can do that, which is a very admirable thing. But she's also seen so much from what, Overhaul put her through, that she's seen so much of like what the bad side of her quirk can do, that she can, that quirk can be used to erase someone from existence, like what happened with her father, or what happened with Mario's quirk. You'll notice I have a new poster in the background. I got that with some of my money that I got for Christmas, one of my gift cards. It is quite obviously from the Hasaikai Raid arc, Overhaul arc. We've got, Izuku, Mario, Night Eye, and then up in the back, we of course have Overhaul and Aerie. So it's the only poster that I have with Aerie, and it was the only My Hero one they had left, so I had to buy it. Actually, once I'm done recording this video, I'm going to take down all my Christmas decorations that I have up over here. So I'll be adjusting a few of the things that I have over here. So, I also have, for coming up for this year, since this is the first video I'm doing for the new year, and this video is obviously going to be all about Aerie, and just kind of her journey. I thought that it was a good way of, it was a good video to start out the new year with, everything that we've gone through, and this past year, these past 2 years, for multiple different things, with COVID, with quarantine, with different political issues, different social issues, everything like that, that's kind of been coming to a head, over the past past 2 years or so. The world's kind of gone through a lot, also with everything going on with like, wildfires and, flooding and hurricanes and, oh God, just all that stuff. I was like, I wanted to talk about a little girl who's gone through hell and back, and now she's getting the chance to have a much better time, have a much better life than what she initially thought she would have. So kind of just a way of going, we've had so many bad things happen in the last 2 years. There's been good things too, as I mentioned in like one of my last videos at the end of the year. I mentioned, or just at the beginning of this year, one of the two, because I recorded another one already. But like, this past year, it's like I had a cousin get married. I had a cousin get married last year, so that's great. We had, big birthday parties and everything like that. I had a niece that graduated. My grandpa turned 90. There's a lot of big things that happened, and there are good things that happened in the world too, but so much of the world focuses on the bad things. So that's kind of one of the things that I wanted to do with this series when it comes to the 10 good, 1 bad. There's like so many good things that happen in people's lives, but the bad things are unfortunately some of the things that we remember more, or that are the good things are harder to remember sometimes than the bad things, because the bad ones always have this big impactful thing that happens, and the good things are much more like small good things, like spending time with your kids or your siblings or your parents or your cousins or your friends, or just getting to relax at home and read a good book or watch a movie you haven't gotten to see before, that you've never, either that you haven't seen in a long time, or, just getting to go and, even just having a really good day at work, or, having a unexpected day off of work because, all of the work is done and you don't need to go in for the rest of the year, which is kind of what happened for me, which is always nice. Or different things like that. So, there's different things that go with that, Aerie is just kind of like, she's seen nothing but the bad. And now she's getting to see the good because of Mirio and Izuku and Izawa and the rest of Class 1A, and just getting to see that the world isn't as dark or as bleak as she thought it was. So, time to start more talking about, a little bit more of Aries' timeline. So, Aerie is the granddaughter of the boss of a criminal yakuza, the Shihei Hasaikai, and through her mother. So she's the granddaughter via the daughter of the yakuza boss. And at a very young age, Aerie's quirk accidentally activated, and unfortunately, it made it look like she erased her father. Caused him to vanish. We now know that it was simply like her quirk activated, and unfortunately it rewound him to the point where he didn't exist anymore, which, is a very horrible thing to have happen to a child. But she was probably very loved by her parents up until that happened. And then because of that, her mother became very, very scared of her. And since she didn't know how to care for this child that she couldn't even touch without risk of possibly vanishing herself, because, Aerie's so young, she wouldn't be able to control her quirk at that point in time, which brings up this whole thing of like, well, Kachan's quirk activated when he was like, 3 going on to 4, and it just caused, small explosions, and then it would get more as he got stronger and everything, and like other students' powers had like different things like that. Like, did Uraraka just randomly start floating around their house when she was a baby? And the other thing of like, Hagakure, invisible baby. Oh god, no. There's so much that goes with that. It was like different quirks that activate when you're a baby, and it's just like, okay, so what's next? And I guess a very good example of this is Jack from The Incredibles, because, yeah, Jack. From Incredibles and Incredibles 2. So, back to Aerie. Her mother took her to her father, to Aerie's grandfather, who's the Hasaikai boss. And it's just like, okay, so I can't care for her. I don't know what to do with her. I can't take her, and I can't keep her. And then she left and like abandoned her daughter. And the Yakuza boss gave her to Overhaul to kind of care for. And Overhaul just kind of figured out what her quirk could do, and he started to use her for different types of tests, which, started to, take samples of her and make her use her quirk, and, make her reverse her own injuries, or make her, attempt to reverse on other people, rewind on other people. And, he probably literally pulled her apart and put her back together so many times using his own quirk. Which I can't imagine Aerie going through that. That just sounds so just horrible and everything. And of course, he eventually uses her quirk to make the quirk destroying bullets, and to increase the efficiency of the trigger bullets, of the quirk enhancing bullets. Those bullets, obviously, we see them get used at the beginning of the Hasaikai arc, when, of course, Majiki is shot with the quirk erasing one, the temporary one. It only lasts for, I think, like a couple of hours or something like that. It's temporary, it's not permanent, unlike the one that hits Mirio. And for, Kirishima has to deal with the guy that uses the quirk enhancing one, that then he has to then fight against him. And that's his debut as a sidekick day. And he does a great job with it. And, and in that same time frame, like, Izuku is, of course, doing his internship with Night Eye, and he's kind of, hanging out with Mirio as they're doing, this, training, doing patrols and everything. And they come across this little girl who runs out of this alley and runs up to them and, like, grabs Izuku. And then we see, and she just looks terrified. And then, of course, we see, Overhaul, Chihei, come out, and he is, they recognize him. Mirio definitely recognizes him, because they've been, the Night Eye agency has been doing lots and lots of lots and lots of intel and surveillance of these guys. And I'm actually going to take the hat off. There we go. Go over there. I'll put the hat back on later when I get to the Christmas part of the video. But Aries just, she asked for help and she's just so terrified and everything. And, Overhaul just basically pretends that, oh, she's my daughter. She's just a little bit scared. She's overacting and everything. She's being a bit of a drama queen type of thing. And he's, Izuku wants to take her away from him, even though he recognizes that this is a psychiatrist, that this is Overhaul that they've been, trying to find. But there's this little girl here, and she's asking for help. And of course, we see as, Overhaul subtly threatens them, and Aries realizes what's going on. And of course, she, lets go, and she runs back to him. She goes, I'm sorry. I'm, she's just like so terrified at everything. And, she just, goes back with him so he won't hurt these two heroes that she just met. And of course, Izuku and, Muriel go back and they report what happened to, Night Eye. And from there, Night Eye does his whole investigation, and then they have the whole big meeting with the other agencies, with, Ryuko and Fat Gum and, Ozawa and everything. And there's the whole discussion of like, okay, well, so this is what happened, and we need to find her. She's this new element. And Izuku and, of course, Muriel go through the whole thing of like, we could have saved her. We could have pulled her out of there so much sooner. But, of course, having Aries there, that allows, of course, Night Eye to be able to, kind of figure out where the Hasaikai are. And that is actually quite useful for him. And of course, Aries is now just back in the clutches of, the Hasaikai. She's still being used for experimenting and everything. And, she's just, she hasn't known anything besides this, because she probably doesn't have very many memories of like when she was a baby, when she was, with her mother and father before everything happened. We kind of get a little bit more of that with the end credits, and a little bit in the opening. We see snippets of like Aries as like a little bit as like a baby with her parents and everything, or like before her quirk activated. And Overhaul, like, he has the minions buy like things that would be things for little girls to play with, like tea sets or fun dolls or whatever the heck. And Aries is just kept in this room most of the time. She's either being experimented on or she's in this room. And neither one particularly seemed like a very fun place for her to be. And it's just, it's like, as the reader, we're just like, okay, well, we know that Izuku and the others are trying to save her. We know that Izuku and Muriel want to save her and get her out of this horrible situation that she's in. In Aries' mind, she doesn't know that anyone's coming to save her. She doesn't know that someone out there is trying to save her, that there are these heroes that want to save her and get her out of this mess. She doesn't know that. She's just more terrified, she's just more terrified out of her mind as to what's going on. She didn't want these heroes to get hurt because they hadn't done anything wrong. And she didn't want, Overhaul to hurt them, so that's why she went back with him. And, eventually then it comes the day for the break-in. And, of course, what happens in the break-in is, of course, Overhaul, and I think it's chronostasis. Yeah, the one that has the ability to, like, freeze you in time for a short amount of time, for, like, a certain amount of time with his interesting hair. No. And what happens is, of course, they're trying to get Aries out of there because she's like, her and the Quark erasing bullets, because they've now perfected the Quark erasing bullets, they are, of course, the main staples of what, Overhaul wants to do. Overhaul, of course, wants to use Aries' quirk, use the Quark erasing bullets to be able to get rid of everybody else's quirks, because he sees quirks as this type of disease. Okay, I got a crazy guy from a movie that kind of thinks the same way. His name is Fleckturn, and he's going to set off quirk overreacting trigger bombs in a couple of months. Maybe you and him can go have a talk. And what ends up happening is, of course, Izuku and Mirio and the rest of the group are, of course, fighting their way through the Hasaikai, through the maze that's everything getting set up. And Mirio is eventually the one that finds, Eri and Overhaul first. And he starts fighting against Overhaul and everything. And he's, grabbing Eri and because his quirk is permeation, of course, so he can get stabbed by the rocks all he wants because it's not going to cause him any pain because he just phases himself through them, makes himself impermeable in those different areas as he's, protecting Eri and keeping her out of the way of the spikes. And, at one point he wraps his he wraps his cape around her, and he's like, the reason that heroes wear capes is so they can wrap it around little girls or, when they're scared or whatever. And I just find that adorable. I find that so adorable. And, so he wraps her in his cape when he's, trying to fight against the Psyche to keep her kind of out of the way. And of course, Overhaul at one point mocks Eri for her existence being a curse and making Mirio just very, very angry at him even more and wonders why, he's saying this about his daughter, because Mirio and Izuku and Night Eye and the rest of the heroes are still under the impression that Eri is, his daughter. And then he explains, oh no, she's not my daughter. She's, she's the daughter of, the granddaughter of the boss of the Psyche. I have no general relationship to her. I've just been using her, basically. Now, whether or not Eri actually knew this, because Eri would have been young enough when she was brought to the Psyche that she may not know that, he's not her father, and it may have just been something where it's in public he just, instantly said that, oh, you're my daughter. If ever anything happens and you go outside, you're my daughter, type of thing. Not out of any real concern for her, but concern for wanting to have that as an alibi type of thing. And Eri may just have no idea that she even has a connection to the boss of the Psyche, because we have no idea if he had any connection to her, because he's kind of in a weird coma right now at the time that this happens. And I believe currently in the manga, I think he's still in a weird coma. And of course, at one point during the fight is, of course, when the quirk erasing bullet comes into play. And what happens is, of course, I think it's chronostasis, that it's either chronostasis or one of the other ones that has this really high spec, really, really good sniper ability. And he has the, the quirk erasing bullet gun pointed at Eri. And Mirio has the choice of either A, let Eri get hit by this bullet and have her quirk erased and I can continue fighting and continue physically protecting her, or I can jump in front of this bullet and I can take I can take the bullet for her, literally, and she still gets to keep her quirk. I lose my quirk permanently from what they're saying, but she gets to keep her quirk and she's safe. And we see this in the anime, we see this in the manga. Mirio has no hesitation in what he does. No hesitation whatsoever when he jumps in front of the bullet and jumps in front of the quirk erasing bullet and jumps in front of Eri, and he takes the hit. And he's the one that loses his quirk in the process. And, we watch as it happens, and it's obviously quite painful for what's happening because it's literally this part of you is kind of being burned out of your DNA. And he takes the bullet for her. And to this day, however far into the future, however long into the future my hero goes, however far into the actual, future in the world of that manga or the anime, I do not think that Mirio for an instant will regret what happened. I think that for a time after what happens, after the initial fight with Overhaul and when things are first happening with Eri and everything, I think that he is very sad about the fact that he lost his quirk, that he does not have this quirk anymore that allows him to be Lemillion, but he does not for a second blame Eri or put any form of guilt on her for anything for that, because he's a hero and he wants to save people, and if he can't even save this little girl, then he's not the hero that he wants to be. And he jumped in front of that bullet to protect her, to keep her safe, so she can still have her quirk, and so she can learn that her quirk is not a bad thing. So she doesn't have to suffer anymore. And just that action alone, I would say very much puts it that Mirio would have been a perfect candidate for getting One for All, for becoming All Might's successor if Izuku hadn't come into the picture. Yes, we know that now via stuff that we've learned in the manga that it probably would have killed him getting that new quirk and everything, but given the outside, the outside of, that not being a factor, he would have been an amazing successor for it. He would have been just as good with it as Izuku is. He worked just as hard to learn how to use his own quirk, and he would have worked just as hard to be able to use, One for All, had that been given the chance. And, I would have been perfectly fine with that. I still would have read that manga. That would have still been a really good manga. Of course, that's not the point of the manga, but that would have still been a really good manga. But I think that action that they show him take, and I'm going on a Mirio tangent here, than an Aries tangent, but that action that they show him take does show that he would have been an amazing successor to All Might if Izuku hadn't come into the picture. And that, yes, Night Eye chose wonderfully in regards to choosing him as a possible successor. Does not diminish anything that Deku has done, but it shows that Mirio would have been an amazing successor as well, because he jumped without thinking in regards to saving Eri, and he puts no blame on her for the fact that he was quirkless for a while, that he had his quirk taken away from him because of what he did. No blame on her. She's a child. She has no blame here. He's protecting her. And, he jumps in front of the bullet and he takes a bullet, and then he still continues to fight and protect Eri against Overhaul, because he's still, Overhaul's still, manipulating all the items around them and keep making the spikes, and Mirio keeps, jumping in front of the spikes and taking the spikes to keep them away from Eri, pushing Eri out of the way, moving her around so she's not getting hit by the spikes. And of course, during this time frame is when Izuku, Night Eye, and of course, Eraserhead show up, Izawa, and the three of them start fighting against, mostly it's Night Eye that's fighting against him at that point in time. And what ends up happening is, of course, during this battle is when Overhaul is like shouting out to Eri of like, you can make all of this stop. You can make all of this suffering stop if you just come back. If you just come back and you come back, we'll act like nothing happened, and I'll stop hurting them. And of course, during this battle is, of course, when Night Eye gets very badly injured, of course, fatally injured, and Izawa is trying to fight, but he gets hit by chronostasis and everything, and Izuku is the last one standing, and he's the one that's trying to fight against Overhaul, and he's freaking out, of course, and I was like, well, I can't touch him because of his quirk. I can't particularly touch his hands because of his quirk. So he keeps coming up with indirect ways of attacking him and everything. And of course, what ends up happening is, of course, Eri is outside of the room outside of the battle room where all of this is happening with Mirio, and she's kind of watching as he is still, he's kind of having a breakdown to a degree, and I don't blame him in the slightest. He just lost his quirk. He knows that his teacher and another teacher and this other student, that's, a first year, are still in there fighting against Overhaul, and that he can't do anything else to help them. He's, and he's injured already, and he's just trying to get Eri out of there, but he's still also having this mental breakdown, and Eri, of course, is just seeing this, and she's more thinking that all of this is still my fault. All of this is my fault for what happened, for Lemillion being hurt, for Deku, for, Night Eye, for all of this is my fault. All of these people getting hurt is my fault. And this is, of course, what Eri is thinking. And she comes back into the room where, Izuku and All Might are fighting. And she's like, I'll come back, and I'll come back and you'll make this stop, right? And he's like, of course I will. And, Izuku is kind of the one that stops her. And I'm kind of glossing over a few snips here because, there's other things that are, of course, happening during this whole time frame, because, Amajiki is off fighting, and, Kirishima and Fat Gum are off fighting at this point in time, and, Ochaku and Sue are up fighting with their dragon boss lady, against the bad guys and everything. So there's lots of other fights that are going on, Toga's running around, dealing with stuff, and Twice is there. So there's a bunch of different things that happen. But of course, the main thing that happens is, of course, at one point, um, Eri is Izuku gets a hold of Eri, and like she's still holding on to the cape that, of course, that Muriel had been using, to wrap her up in to kind of keep her safe. And Eri is just so sad at this point in time, and her quirk is, I think, kind of starting to activate, and like Izuku realizes what her quirk is from like things that like Overhaul is saying. And he grabs Eri and he puts her on his back and he like ties her to him with the cape. And he knows that I can go 100% right now because she, if as long as I keep breaking stuff, she'll keep reverting me back to where I was, to like my previous state. So that's what he continues to do. He continues to, use his full power against, Overhaul to cause huge amounts of damage to him again and again and again and again. And eventually he is able to, of course, knock down Overhaul. And during this whole time frame, it was, of course, like where he's going like 100% full cowling and everything like that for the first time. And yeah, he's breaking his bones and everything in the process. But Eri being there, using her quirk on him, is like, keeps reversing it. And Izuku at this point in time has like a ton of adrenaline running through his body, so he's not really, he's probably noticing slight bits of pain here and there, but with all the adrenaline running through his veins, he's not noticing very much of it. So he's technically like being broken and like stitched back together again and again and again and again via Aries' quirk, via him destroying, him fighting against Overhaul, and then Eri using her quirk to reverse it again and again and again. And unfortunately, what happens is, of course, after they defeat Overhaul, like they're able to beat him, so he's down and out and unconscious. And, Izuku is kind of stuck in this moment because Eri is still attached to him, and her quirk is kind of going out of control. And of course, Sue is there, and like she's grabbed Izawa to like get him to safety, and like they've gotten Night Eye out of there, and he's got like this giant spike in his chest, which is not good. And like Ochako and Sue and all the others are there, and like they're getting everybody into the ambulances, and like Sue points Izawa's face at Eri and Izuku to like just knock out her quirk, and it knocks cancels out her quirk, and she faints. And Izuku kind of gets a little bit knocked out too, a little bit. So, both of them are kind of knocked out, and like they're getting everybody into the ambulance and everything, and, heading off to the hospital. And of course, Eri is in the hospital for several days. She's kind of like in a coma for a while, running a very high fever until it eventually breaks and she wakes up. And during this time frame is when like Izuku and Mirio then go to the hospital to visit her once she's awake. And like they bring her this fruit basket, and she's like confused by it. And like they start talking about like things in the outside world and everything. And she's just, still a little bit like confused as to like, she's like asking questions about like, well, what happened to that Night Eye guy that came in and saved us? And, it's like, I don't quite think that they tell her that he died yet. I think that that's a conversation they have a little bit later, which, it's like she already, they can already tell that she blames herself for like Muriel losing his quirk and like a bunch of the other things that happened and everything. So I don't think that they want to add to her pile of guilt by telling her pile of guilt that she shouldn't have, but she unfortunately does because of everything she was conditioned by Overhaul. That she just goes through all of this, and adding the whole thing of like, well, Night Eye died and everything is like, well, in her mind she's going to hear, well, Night Eye died because of you, because he was there trying to save you, and that's why he's dead. That's not the case. Izuku and Mirio are not putting it in that context, and Night Eye would not want them to put that in that context at all, because he sees the same thing. It's like this little girl that has been through hell and back. And what ends up happening is, of course, they kind of, try to cheer Eri up at the hospital a little bit. And then, of course, it comes time for, the school festival arc. And, during that time frame, what happens is, of course, Izuku and the class are going to put on their concert and their performance and everything. And, Eri shows up, visiting there with Mirio as like her escort. And like they show up and like they're all talking to Eri and everything, and like meeting Eri for the first time again. Well, Ochako and Sue met her before. So it's like they're seeing them, and like, I don't think I don't think Kirishima met her yet, but like he says, well, I was there too, so it's nice to meet you and see that you're okay and everything. And like, she's got her adorable little red dress outfit that is just so cute. I love that outfit. Aerie is just adorable incarnate. With her little tiny horn, and oh god, she's so cute. She's so adorable. Um, but of course, what ends up happening is Izuku and Mirio kind of take her on like it's this like tour of the campus and everything because she's like seeing that everyone is working really hard to build the get the festival ready and everything. And she's like, wow, like she's like kind of like she can tell that this is a really big thing, but like they're not really seeing her smile. She's not really smiling. She's like, oh wow, this is really kind of cool, looking around at everything. Like all the students getting everything ready for the festival, and this is like the most outside she's been in a very long time. And they eat lunch in the cafeteria, and like she gets to see she gets to meet like Nezu and Midnight, and she gets to meet Nezu and Midnight, and like they're talking, and like Mirio asks, well, can Eri come to the festival, come to the day of the festival and everything, and they're like, well, that should be fine, but of course they point out the whole thing of like, well, we'll have to, make sure that, as long as there's nothing that's going on, no threats come in, the festival should be able to go on. But the second that there's a threat that happens, we're going to have to immediately cancel and shut down the festival and everything. And of course, Eri is, very happy, she's like really excited to get to see the performance. And of course, Izuku wants to make sure that he's in the performance so Eri can see him up on stage dancing and everything. And we get this very good image, both in Izuku's mind and I think also in Mirio's mind of, Eri has been trapped in this world of darkness. We see this image of like, Overhaul like kind of still reaching around her and still like, having his tendrils around her, keeping her like in this cage. And, they haven't really seen Eri smile, and like that's what Izuku and Mirio want to do. They want to see Eri smile. They want to make her smile and make her happy. And that's just part of what they want to do. That's one of the reasons why they want her to come to the festival, so she can see all of this thing of everybody being happy and that she can be happy too, and that it's not a bad thing and all of this other stuff. And what ends up happening is, of course, during, they ask Eri if there's anything that she wants to try, and she says, well, I like apples. And like they go, well, there are candied apples. What are candied apples? It's like this moment of, what are candied apples? And of course they explain what that is and like all these other sweets and everything. He's just like, well, I really want to try a candy apple. And of course this leads into, of course, the morning of the sports festivals, of course, when Izuku has to run around, he has to get some stuff and he has to get rope and hit, and this is when he has to fight against, Gentle, because he wants, stop Gentle and La Brava from getting there and like causing problems and making them have to shut down the festival and everything. So, he's doing that and everything. And of course, he gets there just in time to be in the performance, and, the performance goes great and everybody's just having a huge amount of fun. And like Mirio's there and he's got Eri with him and she's like up on his shoulder and like she's watching, as the class 1A, the band plays, and all of the students are dancing, and there's like, it's raining like chipped ice all over the place, and all and like all the fun stuff that's going on right now. And like we see the moment, and I love, I mean, like in the manga it's this big 2-page spread of what happens, and in the anime it's beautifully done, where we watch as just Eri's eyes light up and the smile starts to form across her face, and we see this the shadow remnants of Overhaul like being blown away from her, being like forced off of her from this huge amount of joy that's just building up inside of her and coming out of her, and she's like smiling so brightly and so happily. And like we see Mirio just almost start crying as he's looking at her as she's smiling so big for the first time, and like seeing how happy she can be, how happy she's allowed to be now. And like I just love that moment. That's just one of my favorite moments in all of My Hero. And it's not this big battle, not that the battles aren't awesome, but it's this moment where it's this little girl for the first time is finally being able to just be happy for the first time in a very long time. After everything she's been through, she's just finally being able to be happy and smile and show how, how much fun she's having. And, she's not being tortured. She's not having her DNA taken or her skin affected. She's not being ripped apart again. She's not being tortured by this psycho in a mask. She's just finally able to be a happy child. And I love it. And like Mirio's face is just like all of our faces going, oh, thank God, yay, she's smiling, and like she loves the performance. And then we cut to after the performance and everything, and like her and Mirio are talking to Izuku, and I love how like she's like talking very animately with her arms and her hands and everything like that, and like Mirio is just like following along with her, and it's adorable. It's like they're talking to Izuku and talking about like, oh, and it was so great, and there was this and there was that, and there was a guy flying around in a rope and a suit of armor and like all this other stuff, and I saw Deku on stage and he was dancing, and it's just adorable because I love Aerie and how adorable and innocent she is. And so we see all of that. And of course, then we cut to, a little bit later, we find out that, they show Aerie like getting to run around the festival with, Izuku and Mirio and like class 1A and everything, like her having fun. And at the end of it, we see that, there's like they could never find any candied apples, and like that was one of the reasons why Izuku went out, because he had to get stuff, is because he needed to get stuff for the candied apples. And of course we find out that Sato helped him make the candy apples, and he gives one of the candy apples to Aerie, and she's just like, oh, thank you, like she's just so happy, and I love it. I love whenever Aerie's happy. I'm sorry, I do. She's just like so happy and smiling, and just like, oh my God, this is so wonderful type of thing. And she gets the candied apple and she gets to eat that. And like Izuku is so happy. And then of course we cut to like, oh, well, she'll be coming back soon. Cut to like a couple of days later or whatever. And she's now at UA in the dorms. And, I don't remember if explicitly stated that she is specifically living with Izawa. But given the circumstances of everything that we've seen, that makes sense, because like if her quirk does start to go out of control, he is quite obviously the best option to be there to just be able to look at her and like stop the quirk, like just like shut the quirk down in an instant if it starts to go out of control. And Aries now there, and they probably like, I am so sure that like Nezu, because okay, let me say this first, and then I'm going to talk about Nezu and Aerie for a second. So when it comes to Aerie, I'm sure that like they gave like Izawa like a budget to spend on like getting Aerie stuff for, stuff to give her a nice room to sleep in, and stuff to give her toys, and stuff to give her, stuff for education, yeah, but also for like, clothes, fun clothes that she can wear. And like she probably got to like, they probably like had Midnight like help with getting some fun clothes for her, because I'm sure Midnight loved kind of just getting to treat her like a little doll, her adorable little doll. But okay, so side note in regards to Nezu and Aerie. So obviously Aerie, we know, spent like a large amount of her life being experimented on basically by Overhaul. We know about Nezu also having gone through something very similar to that, because he's got like this scar over one of his eyes, and he's stated that like because he was like this animal that randomly had a quirk, that this high spec quirk, that so many of so many of these other different experiments that were done on him, because he was like such this oddity and everything. And I'm sure that part of that probably gives like Nezu this like soft spot for Aerie. I mean, not that Nezu doesn't care about all of the students, obviously he cares about all of the students, but he just probably has like this bit of a soft spot for Aerie, because like she went through something pretty similar to what he went through, being experimented on and everything like that. And what ends up happening is, of course, I'm pretty sure that like Nezu probably put in like, because like he's got a huge amount of money, so I'm sure he's just like, okay, yeah, no, here's some extra money to spend on Aerie to get her, nice clothes and nice other things and toys and, stuff for her room and everything like that. So I'm just like, I'm sure that he gave like Izawa some extra money for that for her. I'm sure like some of the teachers pitched in too, not that they needed to, but all of that happens. And Ari is now living at the dorm. I believe it is stated that she's like living with Izawa in like his part of the dorm, one of the teachers' dorms, and like she has her own room there and everything. In some of the fanfics I've read, like they have like Izawa's in the same like teacher dorm as like Present Mike and All Might, and like Izawa has cats, and like Ari just likes to let the cats roam around the building. And like that's just adorable. And like Ari wants to paint her room, so she's like practicing making flowers and everything. And, like Izuku helps her with that, and it's just adorable. But like of course we have like the big three there, because we have Mirio and Amajiki and Nejire are there, and like they're just like all fawning over Ari, and of course like the rest of the class is of course kind of fawning over Ari as well, particularly like Chaco and Sue and such are like fawning over her. I'm sure the girls are all just like, oh my god, she's so cute type of thing. Or even sure like as Kira, she was like, oh my god, it's so cute, she's so manly. Type of thing. Because I mean, okay, Kirishima is actually probably pretty dang good with kids. Although I do find it funny, and lots of fan art that I've seen of like Eri and Kachan, is that like he's just like he's still really like he still tries to give up like this angry exterior, but she's just so cute and has been through so much hell that he's just like, okay, come here and I'll brush and braid your hair. Come on. Like braids her hair type of thing, or like lets her like put pins and braids in his hair or something like that. Which is just funny. I know that's not canon, but she's so cute, and like he's had to deal with things too. Like I'm sure that he's like, okay, yeah, sure, come here, small child, I'll brush your hair. Also, it's like he has this need. Side note about Kachan, he has this need to be like the best at everything. So he's just like, hell yeah, I'm gonna be the best at braiding this small child's hair. Come over here, small girl. That just strikes me as something. But like so Aries there and everything, and then of course we kind of head a little bit to the joint training arc after like the two classes, class 1A and class 1B have kind of done their battle against each other, their different battles against each other and everything. And what ends up happening is of course they bring Monoma in because of course he can copy someone else's quirk, and their intention is to see if he can copy Aries' quirk to see if he can then use his quirk to like reverse Mirio's quirk, to reverse what happened with Mirio by copying Aries. And he tries, and I love the interaction that like Ari and him have at the beginning. Is like she sees him, she's like, oh no, go away. She's like scared of him, but like hiding behind Mirio. Because it's like I'm pretty sure that like Mirio has said that like Monoma is just kind of like an a-hole and like just a real jerk and a mean guy and everything. And she's just kind of scared of him, but like he doesn't do anything to her. Monoma is not mean to Ari at all. I mean, like he tries copying her quirk, and then he explains that oh well, it doesn't work. It's not a quirk that I can use right away because it's like a stockpiling type quirk. It has to like build up over time. Like he looks at Izuku and was like, yours is kind of the same, because like the other day I tried to copy your quirk while we were fighting, and it didn't work because your quirk requires an amount of storing up of energy. And Aries' quirk seems to be the same way, because we see as like her horn, like when she first wakes up after she's out of her coma, like her horn is very small. And then like over the months, it slowly gets a little bit bigger and bigger. And like when Monoma copies her, like he got this little horn too, but like he doesn't have like the stored up energy. And so we see that. And the other part that we see with Ari is that and I think this like goes into it's just like one of the adorable moments that we see between her and Mirio is she's sitting there writing letters, and one's to Izuku and one's to Mirio, and I think one is to like Izawa, and like I think there's a couple of other ones there, and she's just like writing thank you letters to them for like helping save her and for like helping her through everything that's happened to her and like all this other stuff. And like yeah, they're not very well written letters because she's still learning to spell and learning the differences between this word that means this thing and this word that means this other thing, but they sound the same, everything like that. so she's still learning about that, but it's still adorable. And she's making those for Izuku and Mirio, and I think Izawa. And then this is, of course, when she ends up, after that is when she deals with Monoma. And what ends up happening is, of course, Izuku, or like Eri at this point gets very, very sad because she thinks that, like, oh, she's causing everyone trouble because she can't learn to control her quirk very quickly, or she hasn't been able to, control her quirk enough to be able to, fix Mirio. And, during this time frame, we see like Mirio is still like trying to help train the other students because like he's part of this, like, I know it's only anime, but it's like he's part of this bit where he is trying, where like they're doing this like, oh, the school is being attacked, and he's pretending to be the civilian that's in trouble, and like they have to save him. So different things like that. But what of course we see happen is Izuku explains to Eri the whole thing about, like, he gives this example of a knife. And I love this example because it's a very good analogy of, he says, well, because she thinks that her quirk is kind of like a bad quirk, villainous type quirk. And he explains to her that, like, well, that's not true. No quirk is specifically more villainous than any other quirk. It all depends on the person that's using it. How the quirk is used is what determines whether or not it's a villainous quirk. Because, there's a lot of quirks in the school that could very much be very easily used as villainous quirks one way or another. There's, most quirks can be turned into a villainous type quirk, And I've seen like artwork of like, a bunch of the different students as villains, Izuku as a villain. That's a huge thing that they do in the fan fiction. And there's like other ones where it's just like, all these other students as like villains instead of heroes and everything for different reasons. And, yes, Aries' quirk can be used via the quirk erasing bullets to take away someone's quirk, but she's trying to learn how to use it to try to help Mirio. And she can use it probably pretty similar to the way that like Recovery Girl can use her quirk to, once she gets a better handle on her quirk, she can then use that quirk to be able to be like, okay, so you got injured, you broke your arm, you broke your leg, or something like that. Okay, so just give me a minute. And she, uses her quirk just enough to like reverse it so the bone heals, the break heals. Or, like if she'd had enough control over her quirk at the time, she probably would have been able to like reverse all the injuries that like Night Eye had. But she didn't have control over her quirk at that time, plus she just used a ton of it, and she was unconscious at the time, so that's not her fault by any means. But like that type of a thing that she would be able to like reverse it. And like Izuku, as I said, compares it to using a knife, and that a knife can be a very dangerous thing, but when used in the right hands, it can be used to make all kinds of delicious food. Or also different other types of knives can be used for different things. It can be used for carving wood and making beautiful pieces of art out of wood. It can be used for, freeing someone that's been trapped, or like freeing an animal that's been like in a trap. You can like cut the trap open or cut the animal out of the trap. Different things like that. Knives are a very good example of different ways to use your quirk, because it's like, yes, a knife can be used to hurt people like what Toga does, but a knife can also be very easily used to help people as well. And, Izuku gives her that example and everything, and that her power is an amazing one, and that she just needs to try, and she can try to do even better at it. Of course, Eri, says that she's going to try her best to get to the point where she can use her quirk to help Mirio and help other people. And then, of course, we jump ahead again, and this is why I have the Santa hat, which is going to go back on now, because now we're going to get to talk about Christmas at UA with Eri, which is just one of my favorite chapters and one of my favorite episodes. I did a whole episode breakdown of it a couple of months ago, when the episode, a little while after the episode first came out, because I just love it. It's adorable. It's, Izawa and Eri show up at the, class 1A Christmas party, and like they're all dressed, she's dressed as Santa, as are a lot of the other students, and she like shows up and she's like, trick or treat. I brought, painted eggs for Easter, and it's like, she's like, trick or treat. Izawa, that's not quite right. I brought painted eggs. Is Chako, she's so cute, and I can't say no. Just like all this fun stuff of like, she's learning about all these different holidays, because, it's like, oh, well, Christmas is coming up. What's Christmas? Christmas, and explains what Christmas is. Okay. And then there's, Halloween, and then there's Thanksgiving, which is American, so it wouldn't have been Thanksgiving. And there's like, New Year's, and there's like Easter, and like there's all this other stuff. So she's like learning about all these different holidays. So it's like she got them a little jumbled in her head, which is perfectly fine. But she's adorable, so it doesn't matter. And like, she's having fun being around like class 1A, and she's trying the yummy food that like Sato made, and when they do the big gift exchange with all the ribbons and everything like that, she ends up with Furukage's giant Buster Sword, which is hilarious, and I love it. I feel like Aizawa saw that, he's like, I can't tell her to put it back. Made her happy, but I have no idea where to put it. She like has it mounted on her wall over her bed. This is my room, all like fun kid things. That's my sword. That's bigger than you. I just love that. And of course, so like she has fun with them at the, at the party and everything. And then of course at New Year's, when Izuku goes home to his mom, he gives, she reads the letter that Eri written, and like Izuku's mom just like, Inko just like bursts into tears of joy, seeing like what her son has done to help this little girl. And then of course during the Paranormal Liberation War arc, we see that Aries quirk is kind of starting to act up a little bit, and we see the big three in the room, and like they're trying to help Aries calm down, as her quirk is kind of trying to activate a little bit, or it's like to the point where it's probably built up a bit that she has to use it. Now I do like that they show that Mirio and Nejire and Amajiki, Amajiki doesn't really let anybody touch him for the most part, because he's just like really shy and everything. But all of them and like the rest of Class 1A and Izawa, and they probably very openly like touch Eri, like give her hugs or pat her on the head, or like we see Nejire like holding her. They very openly give her this affection when she was like probably so used to very few people touching her at the Yakuza. Around, Overhaul and everything, or like whenever he touched her, it was like, oh, it's time to do experiments, or it's time to, rip you apart and put you back together after I've cut you up so many times. I need to put you back together, or, all this other stuff. So she's not used to as much physical affection. So all of this other physical affection that she's getting is probably very nice for her to get. And, we see these other things that happen. There's not too much else that happens. The next major thing that we see is, of course, during the, full on during the Paranormal Liberation War arc, is when, Mirio appears in battle, during the whole battle that's happening and everything, that he just appears, pops out of the ground. He's like there to fight, and he's obviously got his quirk back and everything. And we get this slight flashback where we see that like, Eri has been training really hard with her quirk. And take the hat off again. And Eri has been training really hard with her quirk, and she has gotten to the point where she, she's been like, they show her like training on mice in the manga and everything, and she's now gotten to the point where she can use her quirk really well. So she, she looks at Mirio, and she says, "Can I try?" type of a thing, like, "Can I try to give you your quirk back?" And he says yes. And and she uses her quirk, and she obviously was able to use it enough to like rewind him just enough to get him his quirk back, but to the point where he was before the the quirk bullet hit him. And he gets his quirk back, and he's so happy, and she is she's very happy that she was able to do it. And he's there's probably a bit of hugging going on at the moment too, but like, so he's got his quirk back, so now he's able to go off and be in the battle against the Paranormal Liberation Front and everything. And he's there, he's fighting his all get out and everything, and like Amajiki and Nejire are all there fighting with all they have, just like everybody else is. And the next time that we see Eri is when they bring Izuku back to the school after Yue has basically like beat him down, like, "We love you, please stop trying to run away from us," type of thing, like pin him down and everything. And we get the whole apology from Bakugo. They get Izuku back to the back to, the school and everything. And, they have to have this whole moment where it's like everybody, so many of the citizens inside the school, it's like, you can't bring him here. He's the one that, the villains are trying to get. And if you bring him here, then he'll put all of us in danger and like all this other stuff. And, Chaco has to do like her big speech to them and everything. And we cut to, I'm assuming it's class 1B dorm, where we see Monoma has Aerie with him. Now, whether or not this means that, like, because, well, obviously, Izawa is not at the school right now, or he's in a hospital or whatever, so he's not there at the moment because, like, he lost a leg and got very badly injured. So he's currently getting some upgrades. And, so Aerie is not with him. And in one of the most recent chapters, we saw that, like, Nejire and Majiki, possibly Mirio. I don't remember if we saw Mirio in the chapter, but like they're off with Fat Gum helping like getting people to Shiketsu. So obviously most of the people that normally look after Aerie are not there at the moment. And like if they weren't there, like if Izuku had been there, then it would have been like Izuku looking after Aerie, but he was out being Izuku idiot vigilante for a little while. And what, of course, we see happen is, of course, Izuku, or Mirio, Aerie is like in the class 1B dorms, and like she seems to be with Monoma. Now, I don't know if that means like they have like Monoma and her like just have like this better rapport for a little while. I'm not sure. But, or if it's just like class 1B were the ones that were supposed to keep an eye on her for the time being, which also would make sense because most of class 1A is out trying to get Izuku, track him down and drag him back because of love and friendship. And get back to the school. Someone grab the rope and tie him up again. Come on, we gotta get back to the school. He needs a bath and food and sleep. In that order. Like drag back to school. I don't know. I'm recording this like just before, if there is a chapter that comes out around New Year's, I'm recording this like before that comes out, so I don't know if there'll be another chapter that like maybe it'll show like Aerie and Izuku interacting again, but I don't necessarily think so. We may not get like a full reunion of them until after things are like solved with Aoyama and with getting things taken care of with Shigaraki and everything. But I'm sure that when we do get that reunion, it's going to be very much of Deku, like just like she wants to hug him and everything like that, and he's like just hugging her, like petting her hair, making sure she's okay. So that's basically what we've seen for Aerie. This video is a little bit longer than I intended it to be, but I just got on a roll and a couple of tangents, so I apologize. So I thank you very much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed the video, and I hope that you have a very happy new year, and that just, Aerie is trying to focus more on the good things in life. So I think we all just need to try to focus more on the good things. So thank you very much, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye. I was thinking about you guys and how you saved me. You two and everyone else. I want to be your friend.